Good morning. It is a great day. Thank you for joining us as we put on a great welcome for our new director and CEO of the Louisiana Cancer Research Center, Dr. Joe W. Ramos. I'm Lee HAMM. I'm the chair of the board of the LCRC and the senior vice president and dean of the Tulane School of Medicine. It's good to see so many people here today from the healthcare, community leaders, state leaders. There are too many for me to call out. A variety of people are going to be acknowledged later on. My boss, President Fitz, came. I wanted to call up this group right here, the board of directors of the LCRC. They deserve special credit. You're going to hear some others with special credit, but they have been, and actually others on the far end of the first row, but deserve tremendous credit for not only the work getting us to this day, but a variety of work for the LCRC and for patients that either have cancer or might get cancer in Louisiana. Cancer is a common thread among everybody here today. I dare say that all of us have been affected in some way by cancer, either personally or through a family member or friend. We've all been touched by cancer. I could ask for a show of hands, but there'd be no need. I suspect everybody. Louisiana has some of the highest cancer rates in the country. But that news has improved and will continue to improve, particularly after today. I must tell you, though, that cancer is already better today than it was even a mere 5 years ago. There are people that are walking around today that got diagnosed with a cancer 3 or 4 years ago that if it had been 10 years ago wouldn't have lasted a year or 2 years. So remarkable things are happening. It's frequently with specific types of cancer, so there's still tremendous amounts of work to do. But the good news is through the help of people like some of the investigators, physicians in the room, things are getting better. The work of more than 200 cancer scientists in the LCRC or affiliated with the LCRC has contributed to this remarkable story. And it's really also the work of the supporting institutions, Tulane, LSU, Xavier, Ochsner. I think we've got a video that illustrates some of this.
We are more than 200 scientists united in the fight against cancer through research, treatment, and prevention through education. Collaboration fuels our innovation, allowing us to advance critical discoveries in the lab and through clinical trials for patients throughout Louisiana and the Gulf Coast.
I'm very excited about the center's work and LSU's part in it. Team building and working in teams is critical for great science. This is a repository of teams that has a chance to be synthesized. If we do that and we do it at scale, we have a chance to deal with the very, very difficult challenge of cancer. It's a moonshot challenge. It's a Sputnik moment for us in cancer, and I'm excited to be part of it as LSU president and as an advocate for the center.
So what the LCRC does has never, ever been more important than right now. It literally is a collaborative enterprise of a number of different institutions that are all engaged in this fight against cancer. In a sense, the sum is bigger than the parts. It's a way where we bring together the research of all these institutions and bring together the clinical fighting of cancer. So Dr. Ramos is really the right person at the right time.
At Oxnard Health, we're here to advance cancer care in the state of Louisiana. We're proud to be a partner in the Louisiana Cancer Research Center, having our clinicians work with the researchers at the LCRC to continue to look for new therapies and to advance and improve cancer care in the state of Louisiana. As part of this collaboration, we're excited to have Dr. Ramos as part of our community to help continue to build collaboration amongst the institutions and to advance cancer care in our region.
Well, the Louisiana Cancer Research Center allows us to attract collaborative funding to support the research of our talented scientists who are faculty at Xavier. But it also allows us to attract talent to the university by having this important collaborations, which tells young talent, scientific talent, that they have resources and support to expand and develop their research interests and contribute to the larger problems that we face. If we achieve the goals that we have for the LCRC, the first fruits devolve to the people of Louisiana and the people of our region, whether it's southern Mississippi in our region, but also the fruits devolve that we have through technology and technological enterprise within the city of New Orleans that develops a workforce, that develops a capacity for new innovations for problems that you and I do not envision today.
We are stronger in the fight by working together at the Louisiana Cancer Research Center.
Today marks a major milestone in Louisiana's fight to prevent and treat cancer as we welcome Dr. Ramos as the new Director and Chief Executive Officer of the LCRC. Dr. Ramos is a visionary, as those of us that were fortunate enough to interview him were able to see. He will guide us toward the coveted Cancer Center designation by the NCI, the National Cancer Institute. It won't happen overnight, but with his leadership, we're clearly on the right track. Dr. Ramos will expand upon the good work of the present LCRC, which has made a remarkable comeback since Hurricane Katrina. The LCRC lost some of its most prominent cancer researchers and was forced to rebuild, basically from scratch. And look at where we are today, this marvelous building, a lot of fabulous scientists and physician investigators, with LSU, Tulane, Oxnard, and Xavier working together on millions of dollars of federally funded cancer research projects that last year served more than 2,000 patients on clinical trials in Louisiana. And thanks to the Louisiana Campaign for Tobacco-Free Living and the LCRC program, thousands more have been educated about the risk of smoking, resulting in 30 smoke-free communities, including right here in New Orleans. This is remarkable progress, and under Dr. Ramos's leadership, more is coming. I now would like to introduce Dr. Richard DICARLO, my colleague from LSU, who is the Vice Chair of the LCRC and the Interim Dean of LSU School of Medicine here in New Orleans.
Thank you, Dr. Hamm. You're right about the possibilities that lie ahead, but Dr. Ramos, make no mistake, we have a lot of work to do here in Louisiana. For instance, prostate cancer is the leading cancer diagnosed in Louisiana, and our African American men are dying at a rate twice that of white men. Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death in Louisiana, and our death rate from lung cancer is 25% higher than the national death rate. Breast cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death among women in Louisiana, and we ranked third in the death rate from breast cancer in the country. For most common cancers, our disease rates are higher and our outcomes are worse than the national average. But at the Louisiana Cancer Research Center and across our partnering hospitals and clinics, we're making inroads. The Gulf South Clinical Trials Network, an NCI community oncology treatment program, is a strong collaboration between LSU Health Science Center, LCMC hospitals, including UMC across the street and Children's, Oxnard, Mary Bird Perkins, and 40 treatment sites across the state and the Gulf South. That includes sites in New Orleans, Metairie, Slidell, Covington, Baton Rouge, Houma, Lake Charles, Alexandria, Monroe, and Shreveport. It also includes sites in Hattiesburg and Gulfport. We've been enrolling over 1,500 patients a year in cancer clinical trials, and that number is growing. Every year, we're increasing access to clinical trials for Louisiana cancer patients. And the leadership of LCRC wanted to accelerate our advancement of cancer research, and so we conducted a nationwide search for a new director. And using a leading national recruitment firm, the search was publicly launched last summer, and Dr. Ramos stood out from a field of highly qualified candidates. He recognized the challenges that we face with cancer prevention and treatment in Louisiana: high cancer rates, poor outcomes, and significant health inequities. The data clearly tell us that our underserved communities are the most vulnerable to cancer and other illnesses. And while our advances in basic research are important, expanding access to the latest therapies through our clinical partnerships is critical. Dr. Ramos knows this very well, having had to work on health equity issues in Hawaii, and he will explain those similarities to you. But before he does that, it's my pleasure to introduce perhaps our biggest ally in the fight against cancer in Louisiana, Governor John Bel Edwards. Governor Edwards comes from rural Louisiana, and he understands the need to provide good access to health care in all communities. He learned the importance of service at a young age. He's dedicated his life to serving others. He's been involved in the hiring of Dr. Ramos, and more importantly, he supports our mission to improve cancer care and health outcomes in Louisiana. Governor Edwards feels strongly that we can beat cancer for the benefit of all Louisianians in all corners of the state. Governor.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here, and we are not at a wake or a funeral. We are here to celebrate today, and obviously we don't celebrate cancer, but we celebrate the advances that we are going to make to better serve the people of our great state. That's what this is about, and I think having a world-renowned expert like Dr. Ramos at the helm here at the LCRC is going to go a long way to reducing cancer in our state, to supporting discoveries by our eminent researchers, expanding clinical trials, and as you've heard, it's going to put us on the path to an NCI designation. And I think that that is critically important. And it is not going to happen day after tomorrow, but it is going to happen. I am absolutely convinced of that. But it won't just take some time. It's going to take real teamwork, collaboration, selfless leadership. We all have to work together, make sure that we resist any temptation to silo our efforts, because it's going to take all of the clinical volume of our great state to really get their attention and to move the needle the way that we want to, and to do all of the research and so forth. So I think the key word today really is partnership, and all these leaders are very excited about working together to make this happen. And not necessarily just for Louisiana, primarily. I mean, that's what we're most excited about. But there's not an NCI designated center in Mississippi or Arkansas either. And so we have a real opportunity to become a regional cancer care destination. And by the way, I think we've been making significant progress, and you just heard it from Dr. DICARLO and Dr. HAMM. Obviously, we all know that there's a long way to go. I do want to thank the partnership, too, of some folks who really set us up for today, but they did it a long time ago with work in the legislature. And that includes my good friend, former Senate President John Olario, who's here. Thank you very much for your work. Senator Diana Bajwa, who's here, thank you so much. Appreciate you. The late John Hankel, he really was a leading voice behind this. We have Senator Ed Murray back there. Now, all of the members of the legislature I've called out, they're former members, but we do have Mary Dubuisson, who's a state representative from Slidell, here with us right now. So, Mary, thank you very much for being here. So the NCI provides a framework for success, and each step in the journey toward that designation represents a milestone that benefits the people of our state long before the designation is ever conferred. And that's what I want people to really understand. It isn't like there's no benefit unless and until we get there. When we improve access to primary care, so people learn the importance of nutrition and exercise and all of that sort of stuff, when they have access to more frequent doctor's visits so that a cancer gets diagnosed sooner, because the earlier the diagnosis, the greater the chance of success. And then whenever that diagnosis comes, that they have immediate access to the best care anywhere. That's how you reduce rates and improve our outcomes. And that happens along the way to getting the designation. And of course, the designation just lets the world know what you already know by that time. And that is that you have improved the situation here in Louisiana. So that's why I'm excited about this effort, because cancer does touch everyone, but it touches the hardest those who are the most disadvantaged. And that's just the sad reality. And we have too many people in Louisiana who are too disadvantaged for a variety of reasons. And these are our brothers and sisters, and we need to do everything that we can to improve the situation with respect to cancer. And if it's affecting the disadvantaged the most, how sad is it that as soon as people receive a cancer diagnosis, a lot of them, they start looking, well, where can I travel to? Where can I go? Because if you're not a person of means, that's not even an option for you. So we don't want people thinking that they need to travel anywhere to avail themselves of the very best care anywhere. We don't want them to be even tempted to do that, because at that point in time, you know, you begin to really have inequitable outcomes on top of the inequities we already experience, because certain people being unable to travel and to go and rent an apartment. And by the way, COVID showed that that is not a poor way to set up your system. And so we don't want anybody thinking that that's something that they should be inclined to do. We want the very best care available here in Louisiana. And speaking of here in Louisiana, we're gathered in New Orleans at the LCRC in a tremendous facility. But the benefits of what we're doing are going to be extended to every single region of our state. I don't care if you live in the Delta, right outside of St. Joe, or whether you're up in Bastrop or Rapides Parish or wherever. We need to make sure that everybody benefits from what we're doing. And quite frankly, that's what we're going to do. And that's how we're going to be successful. But it does take the hiring of experienced scientific director like Dr. Ramos, I think, to really make sure that we're taking the biggest possible step in the right direction towards marshaling all of our research strengths against cancer. I think his recruitment represents an important inflection point for the LCRC. I'm confident that in time he will embark on a plan to bring the great work of the LCRC to all corners of our state. He's in the process of lining up a statewide tour to assess just where we are in our fight against cancer, who all the partners are and what their contributions are and can be, and then making sure that we all work together. Meeting and learning from the healthcare community and other leaders throughout our state are among his first priorities, and he told me that. And I was very pleased to be able to speak with him via Zoom before he ever left Hawaii. And I knew from that conversation that he was just the kind of leader that we all want to have here at the LCRC. And his experience working there will be instrumental here because, believe it or not, many of the challenges are the same, or they are substantially similar between Louisiana and Hawaii, with underserved communities and so forth. So his deep experience addressing these disparities and working on programs designed to improve health equity will serve us extremely well here in Louisiana. And I think that's why his experience kind of jumped off the page of his CV and got the attention of the people who were looking to make this hire. And so I'm excited about his presence here. Proud to have him at the helm of Louisiana's Cancer Research Center. And so if you would, please help me to welcome Dr. Joe Ramos.
Thanks, Governor, for that really wonderful introduction. I also want to specifically thank the board for such a warm welcome, and to all of you for this warm welcome here today. It's incredible. Special thanks to Drs. DICARLO and HAMM for setting the stage so well, and to Presidents Tate, President Fitz, who's here, President VERRETT, President Thomas for their inspirational comments. They all nailed it. They've really laid the groundwork for what we need to do here and what our mission is together. So this is a day to celebrate, but we're celebrating the beginning of the next chapter of the Louisiana Cancer Research Center. It's truly Louisiana's Cancer Research Center. So I'm humbled by these warm words of welcome, but I really want to pivot to talk about what we can do together, what the great faculty, the great staff, and the great students that make up the LCRC partners, and how we will begin re-envisioning what we are and what we can do better to serve the people of Louisiana, to better prevent cancer, diagnose it earlier when we can treat it better, develop the next powerful therapies and diagnostics, and bring clinical trials and the great care that comes with those clinical trials to everyone equitably across the state, all the while training the next generation to continue these efforts. It's a multifaceted approach, so you're going to hear me hit that many times. Partnership and taking a complex, multifaceted approach to fight a complex, multifaceted disease. So as you've heard, the task we face is very big, very complex. They gave you a lot of the details to what we're facing here in Louisiana. So it requires an all-hands-on-deck approach, united with a holistic and multifaceted approach. We have more than 25,000 new cases. It's actually this year estimated to be over 28,000. More than 9,000 deaths a year for a population of just 4.6 million. That puts Louisiana amongst the worst hit states for cancer in the nation. We're always in the worst hit 5. And that's not just a number. These are our family, our friends, our neighbors, and maybe some of ourselves. So this is an urgent mission. In those numbers are disparities, too, in cancer incidence and survival for African Americans and other minorities. These disparities are also very complicated by many different factors. Those can include unequal access to care, as well as social factors like poverty and behaviors like smoking, in addition to biological factors like genetics, to name just a few of the things that make that such a complex problem. So again, we need a multifactorial approach to attack that problem, starting with understanding what are the specific addressable causes in our own communities. Research informed by the community and for the community. And that's what we're going to be about here. Fortunately, there's a lot of great work being done here. You heard a good deal of it already. There's far more that you didn't hear about today that's been going on here in Louisiana over the last few years. We have outstanding partners in LSU, Xavier, Oxnard, and Tulane that are each doing amazing things in their work to bring cancer rates down and to lessen its impact. And that's a part of what drew me here. And tobacco-free living has had an enormous impact in work to prevent cancer. So by combining those efforts, their work has a greater reach and power, and that's what the LCRC is about. We will provide a mechanism to amplify the power of that work, to impact the burden of cancer faster, more broadly, and in more detail here. So when we do that right, that combination and that amplification of all that research, the whole is going to be greater than the sum of the parts. And I'm given to analogies. I love music. And so I kind of think of this in one respect as the jazz effect. Like a great jazz band, each player adds their own special take on the theme. They bring their own flavor to it, but together you get something quite different and much more powerful than any of them would have alone. I also really like food. I'm a foodie. I think I'm in the right town for that. And so, as you know, the different ingredients of a gumbo by themselves are not all that wonderful, but you put them together just the right way, and you get this lovely gumbo foo, one of my favorites, by the way. And so in all of these cases, and for the LCRC, all the individual parts add up to something new and powerful and combined strategically. And now you probably know why I want to be in Louisiana and New Orleans. The great food, the great music, and the great people, and the great research that's already been doing here. Louisiana has always been the home to innovation. All of those things I just mentioned, the cuisine, the music, those are innovations that Louisiana gave the world. That's special. This 4 million people can have a powerful combinatorial effect across the world. People come here from all around the world to enjoy that food and that music. So it's always been a home of innovation, and we're going to be innovating here to do cancer research in a new way in service of the people and the communities of New Orleans, Louisiana, and across the state and the Gulf region in a way that no other cancer center in the country is doing it. This is going to be a different approach. And I have to give the board and all of the people who've come before credit for working out that innovative vision. And I thank you for that. That was one of the major attractions for me to come here. Along with the powerful mission. I'm going off script here, but the governor mentioned that we have such a high rate and there's not an NCI designated center in Arkansas or Mississippi, West Virginia, and these are states, when you look at the catchment areas, the areas that are served by other cancer centers, those states are a whole in those catchment areas, and I think that's just not right. We have to have a cancer center, an NCI designated center here, so that we can provide that service to our people. And I think that once we get that, and once we start making all the moves that we need, we're going to start seeing those numbers go down. So innovating here to do cancer research for our people and communities in a way no other center does. And in this, I envision that the LCRC role with our partners can be, I've kind of tried to put together kind of a catchphrase for some of the things I'm hoping that we can do together. One of the things the LCRC's role can be is to add, to align, and to lead. So what do I mean by these things? So by adding, I mean I want to ensure that the LCRC is adding value to the work of our partners too. This can be in the form of new leading kinds of cores that we can provide so that all the partners can take part in those. New initiatives. So for me, a big important part of our mission is going to be to create a good community outreach and engagement system. This is central to what we do. If you're going to be informed by what your community needs and you're going to be working with your communities, you have to have a powerful community outreach and engagement program. And that's also expected by NCI, by the way. And so that's going to be something that I think maybe we can house here. These are ideas that I will be working with our partners and also be looking to see what other kinds of things we might do strategically, other areas we can identify to have the biggest impact for them, to add to what they're doing. To align, that may be the most obvious thing, aligning the partners, aligning what we're doing in our work. To fuse the great work of the partner institutions to amplify their impact. Aligning the research into programs that are informed by the needs of our communities and our patients, and that work with those communities to translate that research, what they find, back into the communities. It's not good enough to know what the situation is. You have to be able to then create an approach to then help those communities solve those problems. Enabling the research across different disciplines, so aligning research, engineering, genetics, cell biology, all of these different areas of research. We need to make sure that we're constantly attentive to how we can combine them in interdisciplinary fashions to, again, use all of the tools that we have at our disposal to have the biggest impact on cancer in the state. And to more generally align that attack in preventing, diagnosing, and treating cancer equitably, and educating a diverse workforce to continue the work and to drive new innovations. And that kind of leads into the lead part, to focus all of these efforts to balance these different components. As the director, it's going to be my job to make sure that we enhance each of the elements that we need to focus on, and to balance those components to make a measurable impact on the cancer burden across the state of Louisiana and the Gulf region. So what are those components? Well, this is where that NCI designation idea comes in. So I know some of you probably know quite well what NCI designation means, and others, maybe it's not the most familiar thing to you. NCI is the National Cancer Institute. It's a part of the NIH. And it's not just a certification or a gold star for having great science or patient care. We have to have that to get to that point, and I think we have a lot of that going on. But we also have to have far more. And so the NCI designation is more. As the governor mentioned, it's also a framework or a recipe for this multi-pronged attack you've heard me talk about on cancer. And it's been continually tweaked over 50 years of NCI-designated cancer centers. Again, trying to see what's working for different centers and then tweaking the recipe to add that in to what's expected for those centers to do. It's a theme around which we can improvise. It's very flexible, but in that flexibility, it still ensures that the cancer center is balancing a number of different components that, again, together have a magnified impact. Those are research programs and clinical trials. That's the heart of NCI designation. You have to have research programs working together and across institutions, across investigators. You have to be able to show those interactions with metrics. You have to have clinical trials that are bringing to patients the clinical trials that they need, again, so that they can stay here with their families. And again, many don't even have the option to go anywhere else. So we have to get those clinical trials into our local rural areas as well. And so it's about those things. Those are the heart of it, NCI designation. But then the community outreach and engagement and the education are the lifeblood. Again, getting that back and forth communication, ensuring that we continue to train the next generation to continue the innovation. NCI expects you to be responding strongly to the needs of the communities that you serve. That's an expectation. So they expect us to be doing what we need to do in Louisiana and the Gulf region to help our communities. And they expect us to translate those outcomes back into the communities as new interventions to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancers. And to provide new clinical trials so that the patients can get those treatments here, as I said previously. They expect you to have a plan to train the next generation from pre-college years all the way through physicians and researchers to keep them up to date, to make sure that we're constantly at the edge, cutting edge, leading edge of cancer care, cancer research. And that you do all of these things with an attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's essentially, those are the key elements to what we're going to need to be doing. And you can see right away, we need to be doing those things regardless of the NCI designation, as the governor said. As we do these things, that as we get the united force together and we start to develop these collaborative efforts and strengthen some that are already in existence, we're going to have greater impact, and we're going to start to see that impact along the way. Some of these things may involve policy. So we're going to need to partner with our legislature and our congressional delegations on some of the work. And a lot of this effort is going to need and to feed the private sector, our biodistrict companies, our hospitals, our clinics, and we're going to have to work really closely with y'all as well. We're going to know we're making a difference in the burden of cancer when we see a sustained decrease in the number of new cancer diagnoses and deaths and a reduction in those disparities in incidence in cancer survival. And this isn't going to happen overnight, as we've all said to you. But we got to get there in smaller steps, and we got to get going. You guys are already going. This is the day that we can reinvigorate all the work that you're currently doing. We can set benchmarks. So there can be certain specific things that we can accomplish earlier on. Maybe things like, you heard that lung cancer is one of the biggest killers here. One idea would be to try and get an increased amount of lung cancer screening for at-risk patients. This has been proven to save lives. If you can catch lung cancer in very early stages, you have many more options for treating it and helping those patients survive longer. That's something that I took an initiative in Hawaii on, and I think it's a great one for here as well. But there are lots of ideas like that. So we're going to try and set some very specific benchmarks along the way so that you guys can see how we're moving towards the larger goal of hitting those the reductions in cancer and increasing cancer survival. To help guide this reinvention, I need to learn more about the specific needs of our communities and our partners, what they expect from us, what they expect from me. And so as the governor said, I'm going to be rolling up my sleeves very early on. I officially don't start until next week, so I'm already doing this pro bono. But I'll be getting around to the far corners of the state. I already have Shreveport on my view. I actually talked to the director up there last week. She's fantastic, Dr. Thayer. And I'll be working through a lot of different corners of the state to make sure that I know what's going on across the state and we find ways that we can help. This is a statewide initiative. I'm also making myself available to all of you. You're the obvious stakeholders here as well, and I need to hear your thoughts as we go forward. But I ask all of you to work with us to help us improve what we do, how we do our collective cancer research and patient care with our communities. We need all of you in this battle. Together, we are stronger and aligned. We can better prevent cancers and better diagnose, treat, and cure more cancers equitably with access for all. Access is a key element. And we can better train the next generation workforce to continue that effort in our universities, biotech companies, and private clinics and hospitals across the state and the Gulf. We need all of us to accelerate the pace. So this is urgent. I think I've tried to communicate that. I want to get going on this as soon as possible and working with you all. And together as Louisiana's Cancer Research Center, we will reduce the burden of cancer and cancer disparities for people across the state and the region. And I think yet again we're going to show how Louisiana can lead the way in innovative new ways. So I thank you all for coming here today. This has been a fantastic welcome. I couldn't have dreamed a better one, but we have some real work to get going on now. So I want to get started on that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos, for an inspiring vision as to where Louisiana can go and that we have a promise to get us there. I would say at Xavier, we've been very much committed to health and research to health disparities and especially cancer. And we also already are keenly aware, especially to our center, NIH Center on Health Disparities, on minimizing and reducing the risks and threats to underrepresented populations. Dr. Ramos brings us a capacity and leadership from Hawaii in what he's been doing in health equities and is working at the science at the forefront of sciences. So we want to thank him for what he brings to us, for joining us. And if I may take a small moment of permission, Dr. Ramos, will you join me? Well, we're aware that you also have your love for music. Yes. And also now your love for food, as we're learning as well. And that you're also a guitarist. And yes. I expect to see you on the floor of the Jazz Fest, and that you'll be wearing these colors as you join us. And welcome to Louisiana, and thank you for joining us in our work.
Thank you.
And
Shall
now,
I open this?
You're welcome to open it. I'm not telling you to put it on right now.
Let's just see what it is, the President. Oh, fantastic.
So you can wear the colors and
Thank you so much.
And we'll help you get the right hat to wear with it.
It's a good transition from Hawaii. NCI designation. So what that is, and I put this in my talk as well. The NCI is the National Cancer Institute. It's a part of the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. It's a funding mechanism. And so the NCI designation is really a grant. And it's a grant to bring together all of these different components that you need to have in place to really holistically attack the problem of cancer. And so those are things like having research programs that are strong and integrated and that work together. So your population science program is working with your cancer biology or your basic research programs so that you are working on the problems of your communities and in service working with those communities to do that work, and then that you're getting that work back into the community. That's really the heart of what the NCI designation is. It's really the heart of what we should be doing regardless of the designation. And so it's kind of a recipe to help make sure that we're doing all those correct things. And if we do those correct things, and it also includes education, community outreach and engagement, we have to engage with our communities. We need to be out in the communities across the state. This isn't about just New Orleans, this is across the state of Louisiana and the Gulf region. And we need to get the cancer care, those clinical trials. Clinical trials are often the last best hope of patients who have aggressive forms of advanced cancers. We've got to get those into places, not just in New Orleans, we need to be in the communities in northern Louisiana to make sure that patients don't have to leave those communities either. Some people just can't do that. So we're going to work hard to find ways to do that. And I have a great team here, actually, an outstanding team for working on clinical trials. And we're going to be able to do something there, I think, truly. And so that's what NCI designation is. I know we keep throwing that word around, but it's really, the main part of it that's important is that it's a framework for how we can do all of the things we need to do, from research to education to cancer patient care to prevention to education, and do all of those things and keep them all balanced to really have a huge impact on cancer.